CDC said, if you are vaccinated, you can return to doing activities you were doing before the pandemic. I think one of the activities that people miss most is travel. So that's partly why we're really bullish.
So why then in your report card did you say that Airbnb continues to have limited visibility for growth trends in the second half? That you sound pretty confident to me.
I'm very confident, but I also want to be very clear that anyone that was in the business of predicting the future last year was humbled. So we're just kind of giving a sense of what we see happening right now. And what we see happening right now is people are really excited to travel. What that means for 3 months from now or 6 months from now, I'll make my predictions, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. I think what's clear though is 24% of our business is now not even travel. See, 24% of our business is longer than 28 days.
Right.
2 years ago, that was 14%. So one of the key things that I would just say is as Airbnb becomes more and more long-term stays, as Airbnb's business goes from just a few cities to thousands of cities, we become more adaptable to whatever travel trends occur.
Yeah, so talk to me about that. What does that say about remote work then, if 24% of your business now is 28 days and longer?
It says that I think it says something. I think a conservative statement would be to say remote work is here to stay. But I would actually go further. I would say that the nature of how we're going to work in the 21st century is irrevocably changed because of the pandemic. I think that now we're going to live in a world with significantly greater flexibility. More and more people are going to live all over the world, not just in big hubs of offices. I think the lines between travel and living are blurring. It used to be you travel for a few days, a few weeks a year, you go on a few business trips, or you live somewhere. I think you're going to see more and more people, millions of people, less tethered to a single destination as they live and they work. So I think very conservatively, remote work's here to stay. I think very possibly something profound is on the horizon.
Interesting, because you also said in the earnings call that you see booking longer term stays in cities as well, actual cities, so not just suburban areas. I know remote work is here to stay, but that doesn't mean the death of large cities, right?
No, I mean, here's the stat. 60% of our nights booked in the city of New York is longer than 28 days. So New York City, our business in New York is primarily a long-term stay business, just for example. I also think that cities will recover. As borders reopen and people get comfortable interacting again, cities will be a primary beneficiary. This is not the death of any city. I think that most all cities in the world will be fine, if not thrive. What I do think, though, is here's what will change. It used to be you had to be in certain cities to get business done, to make connections. I don't know. I think more importantly, the place you have to be in the future is the internet, meaning you have to be digitally connected wherever you are. And so, I mean, that's the place you actually have to be. And you can conduct a lot of business from a lot of places. So cities will be fine. I think it's more like a rising of a tide. I think there's going to be a democratization of not only where people travel, but where people live a little bit. And I think that's kind of good for everyone, especially a lot of these big cities that were having housing crunches anyway.
Yeah. So can you react to me in terms of the CDC lifting of the mask mandates for vaccinated individuals? How big of a deal is that for a company like yours?
I mean, it's a game changer because people want to travel. I mean, it's one of the things they miss the most. In fact, we did a survey of American travelers at the beginning of the year, and it said that it was a representative survey of American consumers, and they said the out-of-home activity they missed the most was travel. People want to travel. They have record savings on average. And I think the thing they want to do is get out of the house. I think we can only stay home so many nights and watch streaming services where we just have to get out of the house and see people. The obstacle is people feeling safe and comfortable. So the moment people get vaccinated in organizations like basically say it's now safe to travel, I mean, that's a game changer.
Yeah. So what about the Memorial Day survey that you just released for Airbnb? I found some of these statistics really interesting, is that the #1 choice is for destinations in America of 50 miles to 300 miles.
Yeah, so nearby travel. So when Airbnb started, we were really a way for an American to go to Paris or somewhere around the world to go to a city like New York. We were really urban. We were really cross-border. What the pandemic did is it kind of forced people to say, if you want to travel, you're not getting on a plane, you have to get in a car. And most people don't want to get in a car and drive 10 hours. They typically want to go about a tank of gas, 200-300 miles. And so that really led to people discovering all these small towns, rural communities, and small cities. When travel recovers fully, cities will come back. But people are never going to forget the lesson they learned in the pandemic. They're never going to forget that they can go to all these interesting destinations. Typically, small towns are cheaper. It's usually typically cheaper. You get more per bedroom in a small town because it's not expensive to live. And so a lot of people are going to look to those areas.
Well, the number 2 destination in that Memorial Weekend survey was 1,000 to 3,000 miles. And you just brought up gas and oil. What happens if they're paying $3.02 now a gallon at the gas pump? Does that change?
I mean, hard to say. Again, like there's a level of meta predictions that are just hard for me to make. At some point, I'm getting over my skis here. But let me just give you a couple things that seem intuitive to me. Number one, the more you're concerned about oil prices, the more you're going to probably travel nearby. Obviously, planes consume a lot of oil. The second thing I'll just say is, one of the most economic ways to kind of offset the cost of travel is to not do so many back and forth trips, to go and stay places longer, right? So if you, instead of going away 4 weekends, just go away one time for a month, you're going to reduce the incurment of transportation costs. This, we think, is one of the explanations, but not the only explanation, but one of them for why we're seeing a big increase in stays of longer than 28 days.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that this Colonial Pipeline hack is only going to make it more attractive to stay closer to home?
We aren't seeing any impact from this hack on our travel demand at this point, so I wouldn't go that far yet.
Well, what you did say, I think, in the earnings call from what I see is that Airbnb business travel and group travel and longer stay travel is where the money is going to be and where you benefit. So do you think people are going to want to get back on planes to meet people face to face and back to business travel?
Not exactly. Let me clarify. I don't think business travel as we knew it before the pandemic is ever coming back in the same way today. This is a prediction. I may be wrong. But I think the bar to get on a plane to go to a meeting is going to be higher. And I think many people will reconsider. And I think a lot of companies actually, a lot of CFOs like the fact that they're paying less for travel and entertainment. I don't think that means business travel won't come back, though. Mm-hmm. People still want to see each other face to face. I do think length of stay is going to increase. So, for example, there will be a new type of business travel. People working remotely. So let's take a lot of tech companies. They're based in San Francisco. A whole bunch of their employees moved out of San Francisco. Some stayed, some moved. The ones that moved out, they might live in a place that doesn't have a headquarters. I bet you they're still going to fly occasionally back to the headquarters, and they're probably going to stay for not a night at a time, but maybe weeks at a time. That will be a new kind of business travel. So that's what I think is going to happen with business travel, but we'll have to see. I do think, though, people will go back to cities. And this is not the end of cities at all, obviously. I just think that it's going to be a disbursement of people going to many more cities.
One more question for you, Brian. I know you're running out of time here, but this is the first chance I've had to speak to you since your IPO. And you are the great American capitalist success story. So I'm just wondering, how does it feel a few months later and reflecting back?
It's kind of all overwhelming. I mean, I'm from upstate New York in a small town called Niskayuna, population 18,000. My mom and dad were social workers. I never met an entrepreneur growing up, except for Bob from Bob's Pizza, I think. And so I never thought, I mean, my mom growing up, I told her I wanted to be a designer. And she said, just make sure you don't live in my basement and you get a job and that job has health insurance. To go from that to where I am today, sitting here, I mean, I do think it kind of says that sometimes in life anything is possible and more than you can ever imagine as a child can come true.